So let's take our phone call. Hello?
Hello, this is Steve.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good, how are you? I was wondering if you could explain to me why when you multiply two negative numbers, you get a positive.
Oh, actually, I could.
We
Actually,
just
I
talked
could.
about that today,
I was
yeah.
actually just explaining this to Nathan and the other math teachers how I explain it in my class. So, are you watching live by any chance?
Yeah, I'm watching on. This is actually your coworker, Steve.
Oh, I was just talking with you about it actually. Then.
I was
oh my
wondering
goodness.
if this was possibly a math
Steve,
teacher.
hi. So okay.
I remember the explanation, and I was watching the program, and I heard there's nobody calling in live, so I thought I would.
Perfect. Thank you. This is
That's
actually a
so
great thing
great.
to explain. Steve, you're the best. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to use -4 times -3 as an example. So if you can see what I'm writing, that's even better.
Okay, well, I'm going to go on to Facebook and watch, yeah.
All right.
Okay, I'm on, yeah, I'm watching.
Great. Okay. So the first thing that we kind of need to talk about, actually, let me back up with the multiplication sign, is any time we're multiplying, and I'm going to give a little example on the side, is that multiplication means groups of things or repeated addition. So this, for example, 2 times 3 would mean 2 groups of 3. We can think of a positive number times a negative number. That also kind of works when we think about it, thinking of 4 groups of -3. And that might make sense to somebody as to why our answer would then end up being negative is because, well, we have 4 groups of negative numbers. Altogether, we have negative numbers. But then the negative times a negative, like you said, Steve, is the tricky one. How do you explain that? How do you wrap your brain around what that really means? And we're using that idea of groups of, but then we're also going to use the idea that this first negative sign, we're going to think of it as take away.
Okay.
Or the other way of thinking of it is as opposite.
That she's feeling me later.
So we can think of it both ways. Either would work. And I'll show it with us thinking of it as take away. So we're thinking about taking away 4 groups of -3. Well, when we say take away, we don't really know what it means take away from. What do you think it means we're going to take away from, Steve? I don't know if Steve can hear me, but just because of time, it means we're going to take it away from 0, actually. And if I think of, I'm going to take away 4 groups of -3, that means I'm going to actually need 4 groups of -3 to take away. So I'm going to represent 0 a little bit different of a way than we normally do, but that's with just what's called 0 pairs. So here I've represented now almost the number 0, right? And so 0, I'm going to take away 4 groups of -3 from that. So I'm going to circle those 1 group of -3, I'm taking it away. 2 groups of -3, I'm taking it away. 3 groups of -3 is gone. And then 4 groups of -3 is gone. And so when we take away those 4 groups of -3, what are we left with, Steve? Hey, Steve, do you hear us?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here.
So what are we left with after we take away those 4 groups of -3?
12?
Yeah, and it's the positive 12, right?
Oh, I got it. Yeah.
And another way to think of that is
Very
just...
good. My son was asking me for the explanation. It was right here, and I couldn't quite remember it. I'm going to explain it to him right now. Yeah, but go ahead.
You could also think of it as the opposite of 4 groups of -3. So if you think about, all right, 4 groups of -3 is going to give you -12, then you can think of it as the opposite of that. So therefore, positive 12. That's another way to think of it as well. But all right, well, does that help, Steve?
Oh, Becca, thanks. Yeah, I needed a quick, I was just watching this, and I wanted a quick reminder, and now I'm going to show my son. That's excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks for
very
calling.
welcome. Thanks for calling, Steve.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hope you get some more phone calls.
Thank you. All right, have a good day.
Bye.
All right, bye, Steve.